Her 9000's game room.
Okay, so this is the first time I've actually talked about an Atari 2600 game on YouTube. And I feel it's kind of important to talk about them because they're largely ignored. A lot of videos on the internet to do with video games have this very Americanized view that Nintendo was the king of everything and that everything retro and cool and worthwhile comes from the NES, and it ignores home computers and earlier consoles. Well, I grew up initially with an Atari 2600 and a Spectrum. Now, I've covered a few Spectrum games before, like Dizzy and stuff, but I thought it was time to give a little bit of love to the 2600. You see, when people see the 2600, they think of games that are essentially like Pong, just a dot moving around. Now, that's not entirely the case with the 2600. There were some games later on made which had far more to them. Now, you've seen this run in the background here, and, you know, for an Atari 2600 game, this game does not look half bad. No, it is not competing with the NES version or the arcade machine, but by Atari standards, it's very complex. Like, instead of this ground being just a solid green, there's little rectangles on there to give the idea that there's grass, and to just break it up a bit. The plane you start with, that you leave the wreckage from, actually looks like a plane. The enemy sprites are large, with lots of colour, there's a fair degree of animation. The terrain changes from the grassy fields to rickety bridges, buildings are there. This is an Atari game not quite like a lot of the others, at least not like the earlier games. Now, there is a slight problem that unlike a lot of other versions of this game, there's only one level which loops endlessly. But this game actually has scrolling in it, which is something you don't tend to see in a lot of Atari games. Either you will have all the action be on one screen, or you'll have that awkward thing where it snaps from screen to screen. No, this has a continual scrolling motion. Even the sound's somewhat technical. Sure, it might be rather irritating for those that are used to more modern music, with the same tune that's playing over and over, but for a console using a single channel, it's actually got quite a bit to it. Now, for somebody playing now, the gameplay will seem quite disappointing because it feels like you're wading through treacle, and the bullets seem pretty slow as well, and it just feels like everything's moving in an incredible slow motion. But this is amazing for this machine. The fact that you even get to leave walking and go into a tank, it's just astounding. I never saw this game back when I had an Atari as a youngster, but if you'd shown me this alongside the games I actually did have, I would have absolutely lost my mind. I didn't think the Atari would be capable of something like this. Is it a standout amazing game that I recommend you play right now? No. But it's proof that you don't always have to upgrade to new hardware to get better games. People can learn coding tricks, people can push more and more out of machines, and if you can push this out of an Atari 2600 with all its limited capacity, then, you know, why do people struggle so much to get simple things done without relying on an amazing amount of processing power? There's some PC games that are relatively simple that ask you for a massive processor, and yeah, I'm not a coder, so it's a bit rich of me to judge, but sometimes it's just lazy coding. And I think this game needs to be held up as what can be done when somebody or a team of somebody's really, really try. Like, that's Kerr 9000 signing off, saying keep on gaming.